They took a family photo to remember a happy day, but every morning the photo changed. Different faces, different positions, until one morning, someone was missing. And that's when they realized, the photo wasn't remembering them, it was watching them. The Wilsons had just moved into Maplewood, a quiet suburban neighborhood that seemed perfect for raising their two kids, Emma and Jacob. The streets were lined with old oaks, their branches arching over sidewalks, casting long shadows even in the afternoon sun. For a while, everything seemed normal, too normal even. But then the little things started. It began with patterns. Every evening, just as dusk settled, Mr. Wilson noticed a figure in the house across the street. A man or maybe a shadow standing at the window watching. At first, he thought it was coincidence, neighbors watching each other out of curiosity. But the figure was always there at the same time, every night, standing perfectly still, staring straight at their living room. Mrs. Wilson laughed it off. Maybe he's bored. People like to watch, you know? But the feeling in the pit of her stomach told her otherwise. Something about the way he never blinked, never moved, made her uneasy. Emma, who was 9 at the time, started whispering that the man knows things. They dismissed it as childhood imagination until the first note appeared. It wasn't on the door or slipped under it, not even in the mailbox. It was in the living room, taped to the back of the couch cushion. A small piece of paper with neat handwriting simply said, "Emma likes to hide under the table when she's scared." Emma froze when she read it. How did he know that?" she asked. But no one had spoken about it out loud. The notes kept coming. Each one described something private, a fear, a secret, a lie, that only the family could know. Mrs. Wilson woke one morning to a note under her pillow. "You peeked at your Christmas presents last night." Mr. Wilson found one in the kitchen drawer. "You took a day off work and said you were sick. Your boss doesn't know." The Wilsons stopped talking about it, afraid that even mentioning the notes would provoke more. They installed cameras thinking they could catch the intruder. The footage never showed anyone, just empty streets. But the notes never stopped. And every night, the shadow in the window was there, watching, waiting. Then one evening Mr. Wilson stayed late at work. Mrs. Wilson was alone with the kids. She sat on the couch, heart pounding, staring at the street. The shadow appeared at its usual window, unmoving, but this time, something was different. It seemed closer, more deliberate. The lights in the neighbor's house flickered, briefly revealing the man's face. And in that fleeting moment, she realized the terrifying truth. He wasn't looking through the window. He was looking through their windows into their lives. The Wilsons tried to leave Maplewood. They packed boxes in the middle of the night, careful not to make a sound. But the last note waited for them on the kitchen counter. "You can't leave. I know everything." The family never returned. The house sat empty for months, but neighbors reported seeing someone in the windows, always the same shadow, always watching. When the local police finally investigated, they found something chilling. Dozens of tiny handcrafted replicas of the Wilsons' home in the basement, each with small figures representing the family, positioned exactly as they had been that night, down to the last detail. The Wilsons' story became a whispered warning in Maplewood. Some say the man, or whatever he was, never leaves. That he doesn't just watch houses. He watches families, learns them, knows their secrets, and sometimes he leaves a note just to remind you. The scariest part? People reported seeing him watching other homes on the same street. Always standing at a window, perfectly still and always learning. And somewhere out there he's still watching, waiting. It was a quiet Thursday night when Emily first heard it, the soft knock at her apartment door. She lived alone in a small, older building downtown, the kind where the walls were thin and footsteps echoed in every hallway. At first, she thought it was one of the neighbors, maybe returning a package or asking for sugar. But when she glanced at the clock, it was past midnight. "Who's there?" she called, her voice slightly shaky. No answer. Just silence, except for the faint hum of the streetlights outside and the distant wail of a siren. She waited, listening. The knock came again, slow, deliberate, almost cautious, like someone testing her nerves. Against her better judgment, she unlocked the door and peered through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Her heart raced and she stepped back, double-checking the locks. Then she heard it, soft footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving toward her door from the hallway. She froze, breath shallow, every nerve screaming. And then the knock one last time, harder, insistent. She opened the door and there he was. A man in a long dark coat, face obscured by shadows, hat pulled low over his brow. He looked ordinary at first glance, but there was a weight in his presence that made her stomach twist. "I need to speak with you," he said, his voice calm, almost soothing. Emily swallowed hard. I don't know you." The man tilted his head, a strange smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Then he said her name. Emily Parker. Her knees almost gave out. She had never seen this man before. Never. And yet, the sound of her name coming from his mouth felt like ice against her skin. How do you know my name?" she whispered. "I know a lot about you," he said. "I know about your brother's accident, the fight you had with your best friend last month, the email you sent at 2 a.m. when you were too afraid to sleep." Emily stumbled back, heart hammering. That was impossible. She lived a quiet life. She hadn't told anyone most of those things. The stranger's eyes seemed to pierce through her, and a chill crawled up her spine. "You shouldn't be alone right now," he said. "Not tonight. You don't know who's watching." Emily's mind raced. Was he some kind of stalker? A creep from the building? She tried to shut the door, but he placed a hand against it, stopping it cold. "Don't," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you, yet." She took a step back, realizing she hadn't even closed the door properly. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope, holding it out to her. Trembling, she took it. The handwriting on the front was her own. Inside, a single photograph, taken from her apartment window. She could see herself, curled up on the couch, phone in hand, unaware that anyone was watching. Her breath caught in her throat. Who are you?" The stranger smiled, just a hint this time. "Someone who knows things no one else does. Someone who sees what you think is hidden." Emily backed away toward the corner of her living room. I'm calling the police." He shook his head slowly. "By the time they arrive, it will be too late." The sound of her apartment door clicking shut behind him made her spin around. But the hallway was empty. He was gone. Just like that. No footsteps, no echoes, nothing. And then she noticed it. Another envelope on the floor, sealed, waiting. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside, another photograph. This one was of her sleeping. Emily never slept alone again. Weeks later, she moved apartments, hoping the stranger had vanished. But at 11:57 p.m., no matter where she lived, a single deliberate knock would echo through her door. And she would hear it again, whispering her name. The last thing she ever saw before closing her eyes each night was that same shadowy figure, standing in the hallway, calm, patient, waiting. Because some people, some presences don't need an invitation to know you. And some strangers are never really strangers at all. It started the night Jenna let him in. She was a college sophomore, living alone in a small off-campus apartment. It had the usual creaks and groans of an old building, nothing out of the ordinary. But when a stranger appeared on her doorstep, soaked from a sudden rainstorm, she felt a pang of sympathy. He was polite, smiling awkwardly, holding nothing but a worn backpack. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said. "My friend lives nearby, but I got locked out. Can I just wait inside until it stops raining?" It seemed harmless. She hesitated only for a moment before nodding. He stepped in, shaking the water off his jacket, apologizing again. His name was Alex. At first he didn't say much. He sat quietly in the corner, scrolling on his phone, while Jenna tried to focus on her homework. But he was friendly enough, laughing softly at her jokes, commenting on the TV show she had on in the background. By the end of the night, he was helping her tidy the small apartment, moving cups and books, even making her laugh in a way she hadn't in weeks. When the rain finally stopped, Jenna offered him the guest bedroom. "I mean, it's just for the night," she said. He hesitated, then nodded gratefully. The next morning, she woke to find Alex gone. She assumed he had left quietly, thankful for her hospitality. She shrugged it off and went to class. But over the next few days, things started to feel off. Jenna mentioned Alex casually to a friend. "I had someone stay over the other night, a guy named Alex," she said. Her friend frowned. "Alex? Who?" Confused, Jenna explained. She described him: tall, brown hair, green eyes, polite. Her friend's frown deepened. "I don't know anyone named Alex," they said. "And you've never mentioned him before?" Jenna laughed nervously. "Well, he just stayed the night. It was the rain, you know." But her friend shook their head. "No, I've known you since freshman year. I would have remembered someone staying over." At first, Jenna thought it was just her memory playing tricks. Maybe the stress of exams, lack of sleep, it made sense, right? But then more signs appeared. Her roommate from last year called, and Jenna mentioned Alex casually, asking if she remembered him. Her roommate paused. "Alex? Oh, are you feeling okay?" Even the building's front desk had no record of a visitor that night. No check-ins, no security footage. Nothing. The unsettling part was, it wasn't just that nobody else remembered him. It was that Jenna herself started noticing gaps in her memory. Little things she was sure had happened. Alex sitting in the living room holding a cup of coffee were suddenly fuzzy, like memories someone had erased. Then came the small, impossible details. A notebook she was certain he had left behind on the table vanished. The coat she remembered hanging in the closet, gone. Even the faint smell of his cologne, which had lingered in the apartment, disappeared. Jenna began to panic. She started keeping a journal, noting down every interaction, everything she could remember about him. But the more she wrote, the more surreal it felt. Words she had just scribbled would appear changed the next morning. Descriptions altered, sentences erased. One night, she woke up to the sound of her bedroom door creaking. Heart racing, she grabbed the baseball bat she kept beside her bed and crept toward the hall. But there was no one there. Just the faint sound of rain against the window, and that odd, unsettling silence that felt heavier than normal. Desperate, she checked her phone. She had texted him, trying to remember his number, even just to prove he existed. The messages were gone. The contact she had added in her phone, gone. As if he had never existed at all. Jenna's friends started to avoid her. Not intentionally, they just couldn't connect with what she was describing. The memories she clung to were theirs as well as hers, or so she thought. But now, when she spoke of Alex, they looked at her like she was telling a story that didn't exist. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Jenna returned to her apartment after class, exhausted, ready to collapse. She flipped on the lights and froze. Every trace of Alex's existence had vanished. The guest bedroom was empty, stripped bare as if no one had ever stayed there. Even the couch cushions, which she was sure he had flopped onto, showed no impression of weight. Her coffee mugs, the small desk lamp he had adjusted, all gone. Jenna called her closest friend, voice shaking. "You have to come over. Something's wrong?" Her friend's reply was calm, almost eerily so. "Jenna, Alex never stayed over. You're alone. He never came here." That's when she noticed it, a small handwritten note tucked into the back of her desk drawer. The paper was worn, edges fraying, and in small, precise handwriting it said only, "See you soon." It wasn't dated. It wasn't signed. And there was no other mark to indicate where it had come from. But Jenna knew. Somewhere, somehow. Alex had never really left. Because now, she wasn't sure anyone had ever been able to leave her apartment at all. She moved out weeks later. Found a new apartment far from that building in a different part of the city. But sometimes late at night she swears she hears the creak of the front door. The faint sound of footsteps in the hallway. And once, just once, the whisper of a voice saying her name. She hasn't called anyone about it. Who would believe her? And that, she realized one sleepless night, is exactly how it works. Some people come into your life and vanish. Not because they leave, but because they were never really supposed to be remembered. The Johnsons had always considered themselves an ordinary family. They lived in a modest suburban home, the kind where neighbors waved from their driveways and kids rode bikes in the street without worry. Nothing about the house suggested it would become the stage for something terrifying. Yet, for 9-year-old Emily, her bedroom had begun to feel like anything but a safe space. It started subtly. A pencil rolling across her desk. A small book falling off the shelf when she wasn't touching it. At first her parents dismissed it. Maybe you just nudged it without noticing, her mother would say, patting her head. But Emily knew better. She was careful. She hadn't touched anything. Then the incidents escalated. One night, she awoke to the sound of her wardrobe doors slamming open and shut, back and forth, as if some unseen hand was shaking them. She screamed, and her mother rushed in, flashlight in hand, to find nothing. No doors moving, no wind, not even a draft. The next evening, her toys started to behave in ways no child could orchestrate. Dolls were scattered across the floor, their heads turned unnaturally, facing her as she tried to sleep. Her drawings were ripped from the walls and crumpled into balls. On her desk, the notebook she had carefully closed that morning lay open, pages flipped as if someone, or something, had been reading it. "Emily, stop with the stories," her father said one night after a particularly violent incident. "There's no one here. You're imagining it." But Emily wasn't imagining it. The messages began the following week. Written in red lipstick on her mirror, clear and precise. "It will come tomorrow." She froze in terror, staring at the words. What did it mean? Her parents assumed it was a prank, but Emily had no friends who could enter her room without leaving evidence. And she wasn't lying, she never went near that mirror after writing had appeared. The following morning, the family learned that a small fire had broken out in the garage. No one was hurt, but the timing was unmistakable. The message on the mirror hadn't been idle, it had predicted disaster. Panic began to seep into their home. Objects moved faster with more aggression. Chairs tipped over, lamps crashed to the floor, and the wardrobe doors banged with such force that the walls shook. Emily would try to leave the room, but somehow the activity always followed her. No other room felt safe either, yet her bedroom seemed to attract the worst of it. One night, desperate, Emily whispered, "Please, leave me alone." The response was immediate. Her bed shook violently, a blanket flying across the room like a bird in a storm. Then, scribbled across her walls in the condensation from her nightlight, appeared another message, "You cannot run." Her parents were at a loss. They called in a medium, who only confirmed what Emily had been feeling all along. "There's something here," the woman said, her voice low and tremulous. "Something that won't let go. It's feeding on fear, and it's growing stronger." Days blurred into nights. Emily stopped eating properly, stopped speaking much at all, her eyes always darting toward shadows. Every object she touched seemed to tremble or fall. Her once cozy bedroom had become a cage of constant terror. Then one evening the medium returned with instructions. "Tonight you must leave a note for it," she said. "Write whatever it wants and leave it open for it to see. You have to acknowledge it, don't fight." Reluctantly, Emily scribbled, "I see you. I know you're here. Please stop hurting us." She left the paper on her desk and climbed into bed. The house was still for hours. Too still. Then the whisper came. Faint, almost inaudible but unmistakable, "Not yet." A cold wind swept through the room. Her bed lurched, knocking her onto the floor. The wardrobe doors flew open, then slammed shut. Emily's small hands covered her ears as the objects in the room began to dance violently, spinning, crashing, twisting. And on her mirror, a single word appeared, written as though etched with ice: "Soon." After that night, the poltergeist seemed to settle, but only just enough to lull her parents into a fragile sense of relief. Emily's room was quieter, the movements less violent, but she never forgot. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined the objects shifting, the whispers scratching at her mind, the promises of disaster waiting. Years later, Emily still sleeps with the lights on, doors locked, her walls bare. She knows it's still there, waiting, patient, refusing to leave. She tells herself it's been decades since it first began, but deep down she understands that some things, once awakened, never truly go away. And sometimes when she passes by a mirror late at night, she swears she sees words forming beneath the glass, unseen by anyone else. "I'm still here." The Johnsons never moved. Their house never burned. Their lives continued, but that bedroom, that cursed room where a child's fear became reality, never let go. The evening had started like any other for Claire. She'd just gotten home from work, exhausted and eager to relax. The streets were quiet, the kind of quiet that made the faint hum of her refrigerator sound almost deafening. She shrugged off her coat, slipped off her shoes and sank onto the couch. For the first time all day she exhaled. Then her phone rang. She frowned. The caller ID flashed her own number. She blinked, certain it was a glitch. Maybe a spam app? Maybe a wrong number? She pressed ignore, telling herself it was nothing. A moment later it rang again. Reluctantly she answered. "Hello? Claire?" a voice whispered. Low, deliberate, chillingly familiar. Her stomach sank. The voice, it was coming from inside her own house. She laughed nervously. "Okay, who is this?" There was no answer, just silence. Then a faint creak upstairs. She froze. The voice spoke again, softer this time. "You're on the couch. I see you. You just kicked off your shoes. Your coat is hanging by the door." Her heart hammered. That wasn't possible. She lived alone. No one had keys. No one knew her apartment like this. Who is this?" "Stop messing with me," she stammered, standing. A floorboard groaned above her. The voice continued, ignoring her panic. "You're moving to the kitchen now. You're opening the fridge. You're staring at the milk." Claire's hand flew to her mouth. She hadn't moved to the kitchen. Not yet. She slowly turned her head and there it was. The kitchen light flicked on by itself. Every rational thought fled her mind. She backed into the living room, her phone trembling in her hand. The voice continued, almost conversational now. "I see you picking up the milk. The carton's half empty. You're thinking about what to make for dinner. You're worried about the noise upstairs." The noise upstairs. A bedroom door slowly creaked open. Claire's pulse raced. The voice was describing her every action, every thought, every movement, in real time. She grabbed a kitchen knife. Her instincts screamed at her to call 911, but the phone was in her hand and the caller ID was still her own number. "Claire, I'm coming down." Her breath caught in her throat. She bolted to the front door only to find it locked. She had locked it. She always locked it. Yet now it refused to open. A shadow moved across the hallway. She swung the knife, but the darkness seemed to swallow it whole. The phone rang again. She answered without thinking. "I'm right behind you." The words hit her like ice. She spun around. No one was there. But she could feel it, watching, waiting, moving just beyond the edge of the light. She backed toward the living room. Her eyes darted to the phone again. Another call, another notification, her own number. Every call, every whisper, perfectly timed. She tried screaming, tried running. but her body refused to move, paralyzed by fear. And then, silence. For a long, suffocating moment, nothing happened. The shadows stayed. The air was thick. And then, slowly, a tap on the window behind her. One single, deliberate tap. Claire turned and froze. Outside, framed by the dim streetlight, was a figure she knew she'd never seen. But it held something familiar, her own phone in its hand. A whisper came through the screen one last time, "I've been inside all along." The figure disappeared into the night. The door now swung open freely. The phone, still clutched in her hand, displayed her number once again. But there was no one on the line. Claire never stayed in that apartment again. Friends tried to console her, said it had been a prank or her imagination. But she never spoke of it in detail. She only warned them, sometimes the calls come from inside the house. Because sometimes, you're not alone even when you think you are. The Robinsons had never imagined that hiring a babysitter would turn into something they couldn't explain. It started innocently enough. Lisa and Mark, both busy professionals, were heading out for a dinner party one Friday night and wanted someone to watch over their two children, Ella, 8, and Max, 6. They found a young woman named Claire through a local community board. She seemed polite, responsible, exactly the kind of person you'd trust in your home. "She'll be here around 6, Lisa told the kids cheerfully, tucking Ella into bed. "Be nice and go straight to sleep when it's bedtime." The first few hours were unremarkable. Claire arrived promptly, smiled politely, and settled in with the children. She played board games with Max and read storybooks to Ella. The house was filled with the kind of quiet domestic chatter parents expect when someone else is watching their kids. But that night, as Lisa and Mark returned home around 11, something felt off. Claire was gone. They assumed she had already left, but neither child mentioned her leaving. She said she'd stay until you got back," Ella mumbled, her small voice tinged with unease. Lisa frowned. "Are you sure? Maybe you didn't hear her right." Max, clutching his blanket, nodded. "She's here. She's upstairs." Confused, Mark went upstairs to check. The hallway was empty. The guest room, where Claire had said she would rest, was completely vacant. He called out her name. Nothing. "Maybe she left through the back door?" Lisa suggested, trying to keep her voice calm. They checked every exit. No one had been there. The next night, they hired another sitter just to be safe. Same thing happened. Around 9, Ella whispered, "Claire came back. She said it's okay, we can stay up late." Lisa tried to laugh it off, forcing a smile. "Ella, you know Claire didn't come back. She went home already." But Ella's eyes were wide and unblinking. "No, Mommy, she's here. She's sitting in the chair by my bed, reading my story." Lisa froze. She looked around Ella's room. There was nothing. Only a small chair in the corner, empty, bathed in moonlight. This went on for weeks. Every night, Ella and Max insisted Claire was there. Sometimes she'd read to them. Sometimes she'd tuck them in. And they began describing things they claimed only Claire knew. Little secrets, things no one had told anyone else. Mark and Lisa started to feel uneasy, a creeping chill in the corners of their home. One evening, Lisa called the community board to check Claire's profile. They were told she had never applied through the board. She didn't exist there. No records, no contact information. Nothing. Lisa's voice trembled when she told Mark. "But the kids, they talk to her. They know her. They even say she's friendly." Mark rubbed his eyes. "Maybe they're imagining things. Kids, they have wild imaginations." But it didn't feel like imagination. One night, Mark decided to stay home while Lisa went out. He hid in the living room, pretending to read a book. Around 9, he heard soft giggles from the hallway outside the children's rooms. The sound of footsteps on carpet. And then, faintly, a voice. "Good night, Max, sleep tight." Mark's blood ran cold. Only one person had ever said those exact words in Max's own phrasing, and he had never heard an adult imitate it. He flung open the door. The rooms were empty. Ella and Max were asleep. The chair in the corner, still empty. Over the next few days, they tried to talk to the children calmly. "Where's Claire now?" Lisa asked gently. "She's upstairs," Ella said, pointing at the empty staircase. "Is she nice?" Mark pressed, still shaken. "She's nice," Ella said firmly. "She told me she's always here. She promised she won't leave." That night, Mark set up a small motion-activated camera in the hallway. He and Lisa waited tense. Around 10 p.m. the camera caught something impossible. A shadow, tall and slender, moving past the children's room. But when they replayed the footage, the shadow was gone. The room completely empty. Terrified, they confronted the kids again. "Where is she? The lady you talk to at night?" Ella's lips quivered. She's sitting there," she said, pointing at the same chair by her bed. "She said she can't leave. She said she's part of the house now." Mark and Lisa didn't sleep that night. Every creak, every whisper of whine through the eaves made them jump. By morning, the children seemed exhausted, their small faces pale. But they smiled when they saw the chair in the corner. Weeks later, Lisa confided in a friend who worked in local history. The friend told her something chilling. The house had been built on land that once belonged to a woman named Claire, a governess who had lived there decades ago. She had died in the house under mysterious circumstances. Some locals believed her spirit never left. Lisa and Mark moved out shortly after. They couldn't handle it anymore. But even now, months later, the children sometimes mention a shadow in the corner of a new room. A whisper, gentle but persistent, calling them by name. And no matter how many homes they move to, the chair always seems to appear. Because some babysitters never leave. Started with something small. At first, they barely noticed it, just a slight shift in the family photo on the mantle. It was a picture from last summer, the three of them smiling on the porch of their new house. The couple had hung it just above the fireplace, a snapshot meant to capture a happy memory. Nothing seemed unusual about it, but the next morning something felt off. Megan noticed it first. She'd gone to make coffee and without thinking, glanced at the photo. Her husband, David, was still asleep in bed, so she didn't mention it. But she swore she saw her own expression change. In the picture she was smiling, yes, but there was something tighter about her smile, a shadow in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She shook her head, blaming tiredness. Over the next few days the changes became more noticeable. David began to notice them too. The positions of their bodies seemed subtly different. Their daughter, Emma, who had been sitting cross-legged in the original photo, was now kneeling. David's arm that had been resting on the porch railing now hung by his side. Every morning, the photo had changed just enough to be unsettling, but never in a way that could be immediately proven. They joked about it at first, half laughing, half nervous. "Maybe it's just the light," David suggested, though even he didn't believe it. Then came the expressions. That was when the unease became real. The smiles, the forced, unnatural smiles, were getting stranger. Megan's lips were tighter, her eyes darker. Emma looked frightened. And David himself, his smile had begun to falter, replaced by something like panic frozen in a single moment. One morning, Megan froze when she saw the photo. It wasn't just the expressions anymore. One figure was missing entirely. Emma. Her little face, the one that had been in every version of the photo since that summer, was gone. Not blurred or faded, just absent. The spot where she had been sitting looked empty, like a hole in the image. David came into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. What's wrong?" "She's gone," Megan whispered. David looked, confusion twisting into dread as he realized she wasn't joking. "Gone? You mean, in the photo?" Megan nodded. "Every morning it changes, and now, it's like she was never there." They called her name. Emma came running from her bedroom, calling out about breakfast, and relief washed over them. She was fine. But the terror didn't leave. Because every morning from that point on, the photo told a new story. Emma would appear in some shots only to vanish the next. Sometimes it wasn't just Emma. Shadows crept around the edges of the picture, dark smudges that looked almost like people, faces twisted in expressions the family didn't recognize. The smiles of Megan and David grew wider, more strained, almost manic. The photo was mocking them or warning them, they couldn't tell which. They tried moving it. They hung it in a different room, turned it to face the wall. But no matter where it went, every morning it returned to its place on the mantel, changed. Different. Wrong. They stopped touching it altogether. They stopped looking at it directly, afraid that some part of themselves might disappear too. Then one night, Megan woke to the sound of rustling paper. The house was quiet, but from the living room came a faint, whispering shuffle. She crept down the hallway, heart pounding. The photo sat on the mantel, glowing faintly in the moonlight. The image had changed again. David's head was tilted unnaturally, almost in a scream, his eyes wide and hollow. Megan's expression was frozen in terror. And Emma, her little body small and frail, was leaning toward the camera, reaching out. But that wasn't what made Megan's blood run cold. At the edge of the photo, behind the family, a shadow stood. Taller than anyone in the picture, featureless and impossibly still. It looked almost human, but not quite. Its head tilted as if studying them. And then Megan saw the movement, slow, deliberate. The shadow raised one hand, pointing. At the exact same moment, Emma, asleep in her bed upstairs, stirred. Her small voice called out, "Mom? Daddy?" Megan bolted upstairs, flinging open the door to Emma's room. She was asleep, curled under her blanket as if nothing had happened. But when she looked back toward the living room, the photo had changed again. This time everyone was gone. All three of them. Only the shadow remained, standing alone, towering over the empty space where the family had been. David rushed into the room, breathless. Megan grabbed his hand. "We have to get rid of it," she whispered. They tried, fire, trash, even smashing it against the wall, but the photo always returned, pristine on the mantel. Every morning it told a new story. Different positions, twisted expressions, the shadow always present, watching. And each day someone seemed closer to disappearing. They eventually stopped trying to understand. They stopped talking about it. But every night, before they went to bed, they could hear faint scratching from the living room. Just a whisper of movement, like something, or someone, was shifting inside that frame. And the thing about that photo, the thing that terrified them most, was that no matter what happened, they could never see it alone. Not once. Always together, always in it, always watched. Years later, when neighbors moved into the house, they found the mantel empty. The family photo was gone. No trace. Only a faint shadow remained etched on the wall, almost imperceptible, but if you looked closely, you could swear it was smiling.